Jai.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishna Project podcast. This is episode number 168. Yes, we have made it to our 168th episode without being taken off air, without whatever. And many of you know the story that I started this actually during the COVID pandemic with the intention of doing 5 or 10 episodes. And 4 years later, we're at 168. So that's quite remarkable. So thank you to our big, loyal global following that tunes in every week to not hear from me, but to hear from our guest. I appreciate each and every one of you being with us. And also, do not forget, I say this every time, but I will remind you, if you are watching this on YouTube and you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, which is there somewhere, so you can be kept updated about future podcasts and video productions from the Hare Krishna Project. And or if you're watching this on Facebook, which is the other platform you can watch this podcast, if you haven't already, please do like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page, where you can be kept updated about this podcast and all the other things we do at the Hare Krishna Project. As you know, uh, as well as this podcast, we do Hare Krishna festivals, school programs, public talks, all those things that keep me out of trouble and keep me busy. Um, I'm really excited about today's episode because I don't know much about the guest, and that's my favorite type of guest. So when I look surprised, I will genuinely be surprised. I'm not putting it on. Um, so as you'll find out later on, this guest today is from a mat or a mission uh, where I've not interviewed anyone from that mission before, and I thought I'd interviewed everybody from every mission ever existed. So today is going to be a fantastic conversation, all the way from the United States of America. It's that country we keep hearing about in the UK news for some bizarre reason. Uh, just, I'm
Hmm.
absolutely delighted to welcome our guest this week. It's Krsnacandra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Narada Prabhu. I really appreciate the very kind introduction, and I'm very pleased to be here.
It's great to have you with us, and it's great to meet someone who I believe has a story to tell.
Yes.
And you are my favorite type of guest because we only met recently, and this
Hmm.
is how I love the internet and how I love the global devotee community. I'm in the UK, you're in the United States, and you were recommended to me by someone in Pakistan, who I'd also never met before.
Hmm.
And I love the way the world works in that way. Okay, Krishna Chandra Prabhu. Let's start with the first question. It's the easy question that every guest gets just to warm them up. That's if you need warming
Yes.
up, that is.
Hmm. Hmm.
Please tell us a little bit about you and where you are from.
So I was born in Brooklyn, New York. My mother was Irish American, and she was, Dutch. Other like many people from the United States, they come from European American ancestry, Western European usually. My father is from Iran. So actually, my mother, she moved to Iran in the early 1970s during the Shah's regime, and she worked for Pan American Airlines, and she had a wonderful time over there. And it was the Paris of the Middle East at that point. And anyway, she had a first husband that was Iranian. He also passed away, and he had some accident on the road, and what happened was they didn't save him because there were laws over there that they people anyone who would help were legally liable. So she blamed these laws for his demise, and then she took the government to court, and then she won, but she felt so bad about the money that she gave it all away to the poor because she felt it was blood money. And
Wow.
then yeah, she was a very altruistic person, very and not very materialistic, very giving individual. And she met my father, and who also worked at Pan Am, and he was Iranian. And soon after, they moved to Brooklyn, where my mother's mother lived. And so, um, and I was born soon after, and then we went together to Long Island, and it was an idyllic lifestyle, actually. My parents did well. My father was a doorman at the something called the 21 Club. It was an old speakeasy, and so he met a lot of famous people, and he brought me to the job a couple of times. I met a few famous people. It was and I and then at some point we moved to Hawaii when I was 6 years old actually. And unfortunately, we only stayed there for a few months because my father tried to get a job over there and he was not successful. And but it made an impression on me because I just loved going to the beach. I loved the weather. I loved the mountains, even, at such a tender age. And so I went back home. We went back home together, lived with my grandmother for a while, but went to Great Neck, then Huntington. Huntington's a nice old town, like with buildings from the 1600s, basically. Very idyllic suburban lifestyle. And, you know, I think my mother was very concerned about me in a good way. Like she thought she had seen potential in me. She wanted me to be my best. So she had found a way for me to graduate from high school or secondary school, as most of the rest of the world call it. I graduated when I was 13 years old. Um,
Wow.
she found a way for me to take the exam. And then from there, I went somewhere called community college, which is a 2-year university. And at that point in my life, I was very curious about spirituality. I was raised Catholic basically because my father wasn't very spiritual. I mean, a little spiritual, but not very religious. He was raised a Muslim, Shia Muslim. My father's father went on the Hajj trip to Mecca. But he was, he would look at the Quran occasionally, but he was not at all religious. I think he even drank occasionally in those days. And I was always curious about God. My mother baptized me at age 5 because she wanted me to go to Catholic school and because it was frankly a cheaper private school to go to. And I always felt I was a bit more curious than my parents were about the nature of God and, where we all come from, where we're going. And, I think that came to an age where I was about to take confirmation in the Catholic Church. And I used to go to church frequently, and I wanted to. I actually had this desire to go to church at that age. And then at the end of every mass, he says, "The mass is ended. Go in peace, serve the Lord." And I'm thinking, is that it? There's got to be something more to this. We're doing the same thing every week. So that's always stuck in my mind. I always wanted more. And then when I went to community college, there was an intercultural communications class, and I think we were invited to go to a house of worship that we'd never been to before. I chose a Hindu temple because my father was in construction, and occasionally he would have clients that were Indian, that were Hindu, and I would go to the house with him, and sometimes I'd be really interested. Like for instance, I loved the smell of incense or the smell of Indian cuisine and the way the gods looked, because sometimes I would see statues or murtis, and I was very fascinated. And I went to this Ganesh temple about an hour from my house, and I was very fascinated by it. But ultimately, I don't know what it was. I just didn't feel the pull to really investigate it fully. And then the year after, I graduated from Suffolk Community College. I was 16 years old. And then I managed to get accepted into New York University. And it's a top tier university. It's very, very sought after. In those days, it was actually easier to get into than it is now. And I think now I think ISKCON does some outreach over there, but at that point, I don't think it existed. I had never met a devotee at that point. Um, I became very interested in Sufism because I felt it was a big part of the Iranian identity.
Mm, mm,
So I had always wanted to know who my father was and who our ancestors were. And the thing is, like, my father actually changed our legal names soon after coming to the United States because of the Iranian Revolution and the hostage situation. It caused a lot of hatred against Iranians and Iranian Americans in America. So yeah, my whole family was discouraged from ever telling anyone where we were from. It was a secret. And, my birth name was changed to another name. And, I mean, looking back, it's just something like as a child, it's a lot to process, really. So, but I think in one sense, it did help me in the long run, which I'll explain later.
yeah.
But in getting my third name because I have my birth name, my legal name, and my spiritual name. So
Mm.
it kind of helped me get through the hurdle.
I just want to kind of pick
Yeah.
up. I'm quite fascinated the fact that you left what we call secondary school or
Hmm.
you call high school at the age of
Yeah.
13.
Yes.
I mean, that's like 3 or 5 years younger than you should based on different systems. So
Exactly.
I'm kind of, how did that come about? Did your mother see that you were kind of extra clever or extra special? Or did your teachers see that? Kind of, how did that happen?
It was, I think, my teachers, but mainly my mother. And the other thing is, I mean, frankly, I did not have a lot of friends in school. I mean, I had maybe two or three friends in school, and it, I just, frankly, I don't think I was happy in school. I felt like things were too easy, and I felt most people didn't want to be there, frankly. And I really, really wanted to learn more, really, to be more just to have things more accelerated. And she actually did take me to a gifted school like years ago, and I didn't care for it very much. I just, frankly, I was only 8 years old, but I just felt like everyone there was so pretentious. So I just didn't. It wasn't a good fit. So I mean, I I think it was ultimately that I wasn't happy, and she wanted to kind of let me live my potential to the greatest. So she actually found a loophole at that time. She asked, I think there was Alaska is one of the 50 states of America, and
Mm.
that was the only state in America where you could get the GED, which is the General Equivalency diploma, which is a high school equivalency diploma. You could get that at age 12. I don't
Wow.
know why. Yeah, I think it was in hindsight, I think it was a bit of an oversight on the government's part, but my mother did research in the public library and found this information, and she decided that's where I'm going to go. And I went to Juneau, Alaska when I was 13 years old. I took the test. The test was very easy. It wasn't very complicated. And I took the test, and then a few months later, I went to community college.
Wow. And then
Hmm.
you graduated from university, New York University, with a uh, Bachelor of Arts degree at the
Hmm.
age of 18.
Correct. Yes.
I mean, that's when most people are starting their university degree.
Right.
So did you at some point when you were kind of 16, 17, 18, kind of were you conscious that I'm ahead of everybody academically, that people my age were academically behind me? Were you kind of conscious of that?
Yes. And to be honest, it was not an easy realization because I felt at that age I was really wondering like who am I going to relate to because the people in my classes were all, let's say, 4 years older than me, and I mean I was still in touch with like a handful of my friends that were my age,
Mm.
and I surprisingly had a good relationship with those few friends that I had, despite the fact that I was living a very different life from them. But I mean, overall, it was a bit isolating. But on the other hand, I felt I was always different from others. So I feel like whether my mother had taken the initiative to take me to higher education or not, I think I would still have maybe I would have had a couple more friends, but I think ultimately it would have been like the same social situation
Mm,
for me. But
mm.
yeah.
And just before we move on, you talked about wanting to explore or exploring Sufism
Yes.
because it kind of felt that it put you in touch with your Iranian roots.
Yes.
In the city that I'm from, in the
Mm.
southwest of England,
Hmm.
the Iranians that I know are actually
Yes.
Baha'is.
Oh,
They're
okay.
from the Baha'i faith,
Hmm.
which is another, I believe, religious tradition from that part of the world.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So for some reason, I just thought of that. The
Yeah.
Iranians I know where I'm from are Baha'is, and there's not a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
them in this city. But
Mm.
um, okay. So let's talk now about how you discovered Krishna consciousness. How did you meet the devotees in your life?
Okay, so I'm just gonna like do a very quick synopsis of what I
Yep.
was gonna do. So I found Sufism to be interesting. I love the love of God concept of it, and I love poetry, love Rumi poetry. I loved, and I found out that Attar was my ancestor, which was my father just said it's very cavalier-like, and I was attached to that. But ultimately, I felt like modern Sufism versus medieval Sufism wasn't the same thing. So I kind of put it in my back pocket, so to speak. And then when I graduated from New York University, my next move was to get a Bachelor of Science at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And this was like kind of a homecoming for me. I always wanted to live in Hawaii. I had that dream of living in Hawaii because I just loved that climate. I always felt more free over there. So I went over there and I liked being on my own. I had my own apartment for a while. And there was so at first I would eat at the cafeteria. The food wasn't that great, but like very close to the university, there's a place called Down to Earth. It's a chain of health food stores. Now, little did I know this chain of health food stores was owned, I think, by disciples of Siddhaswarupananda, or perhaps I mean that's what I honestly don't know who owns it, but that's what most people say. So or that there's some connection. I should be more precise with my words. So I would go to this place to eat hot food, down to earth, and the food was vegetarian, and I didn't eat, honestly, at that time, I was not a vegetarian. I mean, I was not eating beef, thank God, but I was like eating chicken and fish at the time. And then over time, I would go to this place regularly because I didn't want to cook. I was like 20 years old and I don't know, like pretty young actually. I didn't want to cook. So I got hot food there regularly, and slowly over time, I found myself just not wanting meat anymore. And they have this way, I think they are a bit covert in their teachings. This is just my editorializing, and this is my personal impression, my opinion. So I didn't know they were devotees. But, I want to also say that my mother came to visit me and brought my grandmother with me. She got really sick. It turned out my grandmother had lung cancer, and she actually passed away in Hawaii while she was visiting me. Um, but through all this tumult, something happened over there. And honestly, it's not easy for me to talk about, but it's like my entry into Krishna consciousness was very unconventional. So actually, there was this young woman that I would see working at the store, and as a young man, I just found myself just very enamored with her. I really had this big crush on her. I really liked her a lot. And And, I tried to talk to her a few times. And, I was a very shy guy in those days. So it wasn't, I didn't really manage to say much to her. But, you know, I had to go soon afterward because my grandmother had passed away, and we had to go together to, do a funeral in
Mm.
New York for her. And, like a few months later, I had this notion that I wanted to go back to Hawaii. I wanted to return because I had suspended my studies because things at home were a bit, I don't know, like my parents were going through a very contentious separation followed by divorce proceedings. So things were extremely stressful at home, and I really wanted to get out. And I it's funny, like it's so strange. It's a strange story. I told my mother that I basically confessed to my mother. I said, I want to go back to Hawaii, and but there was this thing. I really liked this young girl, and I wanted to meet her again. And she called a friend of hers who like knew people, and then she said, "You know what? Everyone there is Hare Krishna." That's what she basically said. And then I said, you know something? If I like this girl, I should really like kind of learn something, learn the Bhagavad-gītā, go to. So I actually went to my first ISKCON meeting within a week. I went to, because I didn't know at the time, I had no idea there were like so many different organizations. I thought it was all one organization. So, I went to ISKCON, and I found it like to be a sensory overload. There was incense in the air. You see the deities, the devotees are very friendly. It was just so, and this was all on Long Island, by the way. My first trip was ISKCON, Long Island. It's a Freeport temple. I think the Ritviks had it for a couple of decades, then ISKCON got it back. And I went to the Brooklyn Temple once or twice after that. And actually, and I'm trying to think. I gave myself the full experience because I read controversial books. I think there was one book, Betrayal of the Spirit by Nori Muster. It was like about the more controversial aspects of the movement because I think she stopped practicing Krishna consciousness. And I read Monkey on a Stick. I read all those books. And, I just felt on the one hand, it was what was said in those books was kind of disturbing, but on the other hand, based on what I experienced in temples, and I didn't read that much of the scriptures at that point. And, having this good feeling about this girl that I had a crush on, I felt they couldn't be that bad. This is, it's just, there's controversy everywhere, right? So that was my thought. So, eventually I did go back to Hawaii, and I did try to find my crush at the time, and things didn't pan out the way I had wanted, but it was all just really to kind of I felt it was ultimately something to kind of bring me to the devotees. I really feel it was a way to get me onto because I feel like this never would have happened any other way. It's just so bizarre, frankly. And I ended up staying at the Honolulu temple for 2 weeks. And it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I would wake up because I was jet lagged from New York. So I would naturally get up for Mangal Arti. And I loved going to Mangal Arti. I just loved the chanting, the singing. I got really attached to it. And I stayed for a few weeks. I did go back to New York, and I actually met a disciple of Prabhupada named Puru Prabhu, and he was a Shiksha disciple of Narayan Maharaj. And he had programs in his house, like I think it was every Saturday. I don't know if it was every Sunday, but it was on the weekend. And I would go there. And a few months later, I met a devotee named Madan Gopal Prabhu. He was, what's his name? He was once a follower of Amma, who was the hugging guru. And so then eventually he met ISKCON devotees. He went to Vrindavan
Mm.
under the ISKCON flag, but he hadn't been initiated. But somehow he met Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj, and he had this opportunity to take first initiation from him. And there were some devotees, I think, on the ISKCON side who said, "Don't do it. You know, you're not ready for this." And at some point, he did tell me that he met Ayendra Prabhu, and Ayendra Prabhu said that Maharaj is a saint, and you should take initiation. If you have the opportunity to take initiation from Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj, you should do it, and don't hesitate. And he did. He did take first initiation, and I never knew him by any other name besides Madan Gopal Prabhu. So he did. He had already taken initiation when I first met him. And he said to me, my Guru Maharaj is coming to New York. At this point, it was 2001. And and he said, I'm going to need some help to prepare programs and logistical stuff. Like, for instance, he needed like a rental car and stuff like that. And my mother was instrumental. She actually made the arrangements for the rental car, and she did a lot of that stuff. And I should mention, I should backtrack a little bit. When my mother found out that I was with the devotees, she was very happy because she met Srila Prabhupada. She had his, like from a
Wow.
distance, yeah. In the mid-late 1960s, when the movement was just starting, she and my grandmother, my mother's mother, met Srila Prabhupada. And she never joined the movement, but it had this like permanent effect on her psyche, on her spirit. And she always had a great impression of devotees. The only thing was, I mean, and I'm probably fast forwarding a little bit, she just didn't really want me to make this like my full-time life. She wanted me to have an education and everything. It's like, it's okay if you do this, but you should get a real job too. That was her attitude. And I just maybe I'm debating whether I think I'll talk about meeting Srila Puri Maharaj first, unless you want to
Yeah,
go.
I mean that kind of leads us nicely on to the next question. I mean, you've mentioned several times already in our
Mm.
conversation today your Guru
Yeah.
Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Goswami Maharaj, and
Mm.
I'm conscious that quite a lot of the viewers and listeners might not be familiar with him, might not have
Right.
heard of him.
Mm.
So feel free to talk about him, glorify him as much as you want.
Shy.
Um, what inspired you to follow him, take initiation from him,
Mm.
um, and also from the short piece of information that was sent to me about you, you also traveled around the world with him. I think 3 times, was it 3 world tours,
Three
which
world
is
tours.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
was very fortunate to have that
I mean,
opportunity.
just amazing. And I just for a bit of context, uh, Srila Bhakti Vaibhav Puri Maharaj was a godbrother of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada,
Yes.
and was one of the last living disciples of Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur on the planet.
Hmm.
So for me, that's really important to stress to our viewers and listeners for context.
Right.
So another one of these fantastic, amazing godbrothers of Srila Prabhupada who have
Hmm.
contributed so much to the world.
Hmm.
So over to you. Let's talk about your Guru Maharaj, and you can glorify him as much as you want.
Thank you so much. So, I mean, just a slight background. I think there's a serial on YouTube, Prabhupada Memories, which is interviews of Prabhupada disciples. Part 26 is a 1 hour interview with Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj, and he speaks about Srila Prabhupada and all that time. And there's a lot of wonderful glorification of Srila Prabhupada. At some point, he even cries a bit because he's like just talking about the contributions that Srila Prabhupada made to all of us. And of course, he took initiation in 1936 from Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupada. This was, I think, less than a year before he left the planet. And he later on made the Sri Krishna Chaitanya mission and took sannyas. Before that, he was Nrsimha Das Brahmachari from Orissa near Berhampur.
Wow.
Hmm.
Hey,
And
just out of interest, who gave your Guru Maharaj sannyas?
Bhakti Sarvasvagiri Maharaj. I don't know too much about him. I've been meaning to ask our current Acharya, Srila Vishnu Maharaj, more about him because I'm a bit curious myself.
Yeah, and that I have to say that's not a name that I have heard.
Yeah.
I was expecting you to say either Srila Bhakti Rakshakshira Maharaj
Hmm.
or Keshava Maharaj, the
Right.
Uriah Maharaj, but
Hmm.
so that's a new name for me as well.
Yeah. So let's see. Basically, so when we went, we picked him up at the airport, Guru Maharaj, and my mother spread flower petals on the floor in the airport. And nobody told her to do that. That was kind of sweet of her. We went to my friend's apartment, and I was allowed to stay. And my friend had like a either one bedroom or studio apartment, and somehow like our Guru Maharaj and I think his brahmachari servant and myself and I think one sannyasi and Madan Gopal Prabhu. I think we all stayed in the same apartment for a while, and because I felt just so attached. When I first met him, I can't even describe what that was like. I could tell he was like just from another world, basically, you know. Um, he was just so sweet and so humble and so much love. Very regal, you know. And it's just and you know he was very outgoing too. He wasn't just thinking like I'm the guru and you know who are you? He was very sweet to everybody. He gave so much mercy to everyone. And he asked me about me. He wanted to know where I was from. I said, I'm from Brooklyn. And he's like, no, where's your father from? I'm like, Iran. And he actually, I could tell he was very interested. He was very intrigued. And I kind of, I felt good about that. You know, it's like, I mean, I hate to say it. I just wonder sometimes do others like have some misgivings about people from Muslim majority countries or not? Because just I think just because there's so much tension. I mean, even if you read in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, all the things that Haridas Thakur went through, it just naturally creates that kind of tension. But I always felt very welcomed by him. And from the very beginning, I felt like he treated me like a son. I felt so loved and appreciated by him. So excuse me. It's just
It's okay. You can
yeah.
take your time. Take your
Yeah.
time.
And I want to say that you know, I think Madan Gopal, I mean, we had some aspiration of like having him do a lecture in one of the ISKCON temples, and at the time it wasn't going to happen. But something else very interesting came up. We because I just want to say I'd say virtually all of our programs were at devotees' houses, which were small but very intimate. They were very relishable, I would say. But there was one thing we did with our Guru Maharaj, one event that was totally unpredicted, totally unscripted, I should say, no, unplanned. It was so my Guru Maharaj arrived on the 23rd of August. This was like 3 weeks before 9/11, basically. And 2 days later, it was Radhastami. And we didn't know what we were going to do for Radhastami. Like, we felt we need to do something special. It's Radhastami. We got to do something. And we couldn't find any programs to go to. But Madan Gopal Prabhu said, let's just go to the World Trade Center and just like for a sightseeing trip. So we go over there and we get parking. And it's one of these like parking, it's not a garage, it was a lot, an outdoor lot. And there was a parking lot attendant over there. And my Guru Maharaj approached the parking lot attendant and said, you should let us park here for free. We are sadhu. And the parking lot attendant said, I can't do that. It's against the rules. And my Guru Maharaj, I don't remember the precise words that he said, but he said, you're missing a great, and he said this in a very gentle way. He did not say this in a severe way, in like an encouraging way. He said, you're missing a great opportunity. Um, this job and these places, they're not going to last. They're not going to be here anymore. And and it's kind of and it's ironic that 2.5 weeks after he made that statement, that I don't think that parking lot existed anymore or the buildings, you know. So
Mm.
when people I've told this story to a lot of people, devotees and non-devotees, and they tend to it's very jarring. I mean, for lack of a better word. And we went into the building. We went into Tower 2. And there's a video on YouTube. I should have shared this with you before we started, but anyway. Um, we went up the elevator. At some point, and I don't know why, I think we just started to break out into kirtan. You know, we were all singing. I think there was one Italian, Golokananda Prabhu is the he's Italian and he's the secretary. He was the secretary to my Guru Maharaj basically for, you know, the tours, and he started leading kirtan. He's a very prolific kirtan leader. And what I found most amazing, and but at this point we were on the top of Tower 2. We were on the observation level. And nobody stopped us. We were just doing kirtan. I vaguely remember somebody brought a mridanga with them. I don't know. It just, so we were just chanting, singing, and completely unhindered. You know,
Mm.
I thought, looking back, I'm like, why didn't a guard stop us? But nobody did. And at some point, even my Guru Maharaj was dancing. You know, he was like 88 years old at the time, so it was nice. And he was dancing with others. Non-devotees were dancing with him. It was just mind-blowing and
This
heart.
was in the World Trade Center.
Yes, Tower 2. Yes.
Wow.
Hmm.
I find that quite phenomenal. Not just the statement,
Hmm.
um, but the fact that you and your Guru Maharaj and others were doing kirtan in the World Trade Center 2 weeks before it was attacked.
Exactly.
I mean, there's definitely something kind of divine going on there, kind of a divine arrangement, isn't there?
Ye- Absolutely. And it was on Radhastami of all days.
Wow.
Hmm. It's I mean, no doubt. I've felt like over the years, a lot of devotees were saying this is some kind of purification. This was Krishna's will that we were supposed to be there on that day. So that I would say that was one of the most memorable days I ever had with my Guru Maharaj. And you know, it was in a sense, no other story really compares to that in terms of magnitude. But I remember when we came back from there, it was around the evening. Me and these other devotees, we were so fired up. Kind of we were driving home. We would do kirtan, like we would get out of the car, and we had a passenger van. We all got out. We did kirtan at the red lights. And then when the light was green, we would all go back into the car and we would just keep doing that over and over. And we were that fired up. This was like really ecstatic kirtan. It was just, we had something. We had some mercy that day. It was very palpable. And the rest of the trip was quite lovely. We went to the Tompkins Square Park tree where Srila Prabhupada chanted. He would actually, my Guru Maharaj, he would give lectures twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. And at his age, that's phenomenal. I mean, there are, acharyas who give maybe once a day. And I'm not putting them down, but I'm just saying, like, he was so advanced in age and he had all this energy. And anytime he would walk around, it was like something was propelling him. He wasn't walking in some like, you would expect someone his age to walk kind of in a rickety way. I mean, he had a cane, but he was always being propelled somehow. He had such a like strong, vigorous walk to him, He was
Mm.
so I
You,
mean
you
the rest
mentioned you mentioned that he was 88 at this
yeah.
point. I
Hmm.
mean, that's quite phenomenal. Whichever way you look
Absolutely.
at it, 88, to be that active, traveling all around the world at that age is quite
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah, I think to my knowledge, he was the oldest acharya or any devotee period who was traveling to different countries and doing the preaching, basically. I don't think there was anyone older than him doing it at any point because
No, I think you're right. I mean, Srila Maharaj never traveled, but
right.
I think he lived to 93.
Hmm.
But he never
Yeah.
traveled. But no, and Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj was a different generation, so to speak.
Yeah, I
Um,
think he was either 89 or 90 when he disappeared. I could be
mm,
wrong, but I think I did the math like years and years ago, and Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj was older when he did his last tour. So
wow,
yeah.
amazing,
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean he was absolutely inspiring. So excuse me. I just want to see what. So he went back. He continued on his trip. I think he went back to India at that point after New York was finished. And I had this strong, and I don't know why, but I had this strong notion that I wanted to take shelter of him. And it's hard to say why I didn't do it like on the spot, but it's just maybe I'm just slow in a sense, but when I was just processing everything, I just became more and more attached to him and just remembering him. And I, excuse me, I made some inquiry to, I think, and they simply said, "Come to India." And I went to India. I didn't know what to expect. It was his Vyasa Puja, which took place in Rajmundry. And ironically, that is the place where the Sri Krishna Chaitanya mission was founded. I don't remember the exact year. I think it was late 50s, early 60s that it was founded, but it was in Rajmundry.
Mm,
And the
mm.
next town over, Kovur, was where uh, uh, Mahaprabhu met Ramananda Roy. There are deities there. I took pictures of them ages ago. So that was, I took shelter of him on his Vyas Puja. And, his birthday was my second birthday, my spiritual birthday. So it was nice
Wow,
to have that tied together.
that's an amazing connection, isn't it?
Yeah. But, I wanted to stay longer with him because I told, I think, Golokananda Prabhu and a couple of other Italian devotees that I was going to come in through Mumbai. They met me at the airport. We took like a 2,000-mile train ride from Mumbai to Rajmundry, and I wanted to stay with them. I couldn't because I had to go back home. My mother was, she was having some difficulties. She was going through a very contentious divorce, and I really felt that she needed support. I'm the only child. I have no brothers and sisters, so um, I felt the need to return. But on the other hand, that later that year, I found there was the opportunity to travel with my Guru Maharaj through Europe, and I took that opportunity very gladly. I just wanted to be with him again, and we went to so many different cities in Italy. I think we had a temple in Rome, and also went to Sardinia, Torino, uh, Firenze, aka Florence, Naples, Vienna, and Croatia, Spain, Alicante, and Logroño. So many cities. I spent at least 2 months um, with my Guru Maharaj in that situation. And it was very, very, I would say it was the best time in my life to just, and I have to be really candid here. I didn't always completely understand what he was saying. I mean, he spoke English clearly, but it's just not easy to follow all the time. And, my, I think I feel as if I don't have the best attention span, especially when dealing with difficulties like, going through an accent. But I just being in his presence was just enough for me. Just it was like the shining rays of the sun. He was just being with him. I just felt so I can't even put it I can't put it to words. It's just I had never been so happy in my life, and it wasn't like this kind of giddy happiness that kind of fades over time. It was something more. It was like a kind of a slow burning flame that just never extinguishes. It's I think on one of your other shows, one of your episodes, somebody mentioned that it's like falling in love, and it is. That's how I felt. But it was, of course, more wholesome and more like ultimately he would never ever let you down. He was just always always present. And there was one story. I was with him in Alicante, and he had this little. They had a temple, and he had a small cottage all to himself. Nothing elaborate. It was very humble but nice. And I actually had the fortune of spending time with him alone there for a few minutes at least. And he asked me if I took prasadam, and he always asked me if I took prasadam. He was always looking after me, and I think I said yes. I think I did, but for some reason, he went right into the kitchen and he rummaged through pots and plates and was preparing a plate of prasadam for me. And his servant Brajendranandan Prabhu was not too far away. He could have asked him to do it, but he did it himself. And that he was 89 at the time. I mean, that completely melted my heart right there, even immediately. That he was just completely unpretentious. No there was no hint of all the things that hold us back. There was yeah, it was I don't know what else to say.
It's okay. I can certainly feel the emotion coming through,
Mm.
through the Zoom call, through the conversation, through the internet waves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel quite sad that in this life I never had the chance to meet him.
Mm.
He sounded like an amazing spiritual teacher and guide.
Yeah.
And it sounds so that you're so fortunate to in this life
Hmm.
have had the opportunity to serve him and
Yeah.
engage with him.
I agree. I mean, I've thought about that often. Like, what did I do to deserve that
Mm,
privilege? And I honestly have no idea. I don't think I do. I don't think I ever deserved it. I think it was just
mm,
sheer dumb luck, frankly. I think they talk about the mercy of the guru, and
mm,
you hear about Jagai and Madai, how they had the mercy of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, and despite them having been so degraded, and I just feel that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, it wasn't just that I met him, but he just was so compassionate. It wasn't simply that, he just like gave a bunch of people initiation, we were just
mm.
like names on a page or whatever. He cared about all of us. I mean, he definitely cared about me, and if he cared about me, I'm sure he cared about everyone he ever gave initiation to.
Can I just ask, not
Anything.
one of the questions on the piece of paper,
Anything.
that I emailed before, but in terms of uh, Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj's following in the West,
Yes.
number of disciples, and
Mm.
also the status or the condition of the Sri Krishna Chaitanya mission in the West. Can you just
Yes.
tell us a bit about that? What was his following like? What was the mission like? Temples, groups, network.
Mm, that's a very good question. I mean, it was definitely not as extensive as, let's say, the Sangha of Srila Narayan Maharaj or the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat. It was a bit more limited. I'd say the only countries outside of India where there was a sizable presence was Italy and Austria. Those were the only places with temples. Later on, Spain had one in Alicante. I'm pretty sure it's still there. America, I'd say we only had about 1 dozen initiated disciples of my Guru Maharaj.
Hmm.
I mean, there was Madan Gopal and myself, and there are a few that live down in Alachua, Florida. There's another one in California, and I mean, I can't. It doesn't add up to more than a dozen. Um,
Hmm.
it's and it's I honestly I'm just a little on the one hand I frankly just I hate to say it, but I find it sad because like more people should have gotten his mercy. On the other hand, I have to say that I had visited other sanghas, and I had found, like, for instance, I don't, and I feel it's better I don't name anyone in specific, but there are other sanghas in the Gaudiya Math where there were just so many devotees, you couldn't meet the acharya. It was just like you were just blocked every way. But the fact that we were not as numerous, it was much more intimate. We were always we were practically guaranteed to have our Guru Maharaj's direct association, and I couldn't get enough of it really. And I just there was like a selfish part of me in those days wishing that it would never get to the point where we were as crowded as the other mots. And
Hmm.
looking back, I feel really guilty about that because,
Hmm.
I feel like, when I think about myself, I think I should have developed myself better in those days, to become a better preacher, because that's what really the mandate is for everyone. It's the
Hmm.
same for ISKCON and virtually the entire Gaudiya Math, the Saraswat line. We all are here to give this mercy to others. Um, I was going to
And
say,
I believe there is still a presence in Austria, at least, isn't there? There's
yes,
at least one temple still in Austria with sannyasis.
correct. You're absolutely right. It's the Sri Radha Govinda Mandir. I think they were first in Vienna, then they moved outside Vienna, and I think they might have moved again, but I'm not sure because I should know this, but I don't really keep up with the movements of the temple so much. But they definitely do have a temple over there. I believe it was headed by Srila Muni Maharaj, and he recently disappeared.
I
And
saw
we
that, yeah.
have, yeah, and there's Nrsimha Maharaj and Sadhu Maharaj. They're both from Austria. As far as I know, like they're the only Austrian sannyasis ever, to my knowledge. So,
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of any others, but I don't necessarily know the
yeah,
nationalities
yeah,
of every Western sannyasi.
true.
I was told a few years ago that your Guru Maharaj did visit the UK at one point. Is that true?
It could be, but I'll tell you, if that happened, it would not have been during the time that I was there. So I would say not 2002, probably not 2003, because I don't think I went to Europe in 2003. I went with him all over North America that year. And it was definitely not in 2004. So I think he was traveling since either 1996 or 1997. It could have been like, let's say 1997 through 2001. But
Mm.
I do know that he had at least one like Italian disciple who resided in the United Kingdom. So it's conceivable that he would have went there. He generally went to places where someone was going to host him and agree to do programs.
Yeah, I mean, I put something on Facebook a couple of years ago, and one senior or older devotee in
Mm.
the UK
Yeah.
contacted me to say that your Guru Maharaj did visit Birmingham, which is in the Midlands, the middle of England, but
Right,
I
right.
couldn't get any verification for to that from anybody. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just
Mm.
no one else could, not even devotees in your particular mat could tell me that either. So I didn't write
Uh-huh.
about it at the time.
Right. I mean, to my knowledge, like Birmingham had a mott with Srila Narayan Maharaj. So if that had occurred, they probably were hosted by disciples of Srila Narayan Maharaj. So I mean, I wish I had known sooner. I probably would have made some inquiries, but I think Shripad Govinda Maharaj of Srila Narayan Maharaj's group might know because I think he did spend time in Birmingham. But I think any other devotee in that city might know the answer. I just wish that I had an answer for you.
Mm,
I should know
mm.
these things
Oh
since
no,
I
it's
am.
okay. I'm not expecting you to know everything.
Okay, good.
I'm just fascinated by these things, and
Yeah.
I've just forgotten one thing I was going to say to you or ask you about your
Hmm.
Guru Maharaj. But
Oh, oh, before you say,
yeah,
I just
please.
wanted to also say, he did visit Australia one time in 2001. I'm not sure which city, but I think he did programs over there, if I'm not mistaken.
For some bizarre reason, you've reminded me of my question to you.
I
Did
figured that would happen.
did Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj have any interaction with Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Maharaj?
Um, I, I think they must have met. I've never personally seen them meet. Like I've personally seen my Guru Maharaj meet Srila Narayan Maharaj. I've seen that meeting, but I've never seen Srila Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Maharaj meet my Guru Maharaj. But I mean, intuitively, I think they must have met. There's no way they couldn't have.
Yes, it sounds like they were traveling in the West around the same time. But of
Yeah,
course, they weren't in the same country at the same time. And
yeah,
also, when you were talking about the size of networks or the size of missions,
yes,
um, I think a comparable size would have been at the time the size of the Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya mat, which was the mat headed by Bhaktivedanta Tirtha Maharaj in the
right.
West. And
Uh-huh.
we were talking about sizes of mats, and the Sri
Yeah,
Krishna
yeah.
Chaitanya mission was
Uh-huh.
probably smaller than the Srila Maharaj's mat or Narayana Maharaj's mat. But in my head, I was thinking of Bhaktivedanta Tirtha Maharaj's
Hmm.
because he also had a dispersed number of followers around Europe and North America at the same time as well.
Right. I mean, I think the biggest group that we had would probably have been in Italy. I think he had the most outside of India. His Italian disciples are the most numerous, at least that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Wow.
So outside of that, then you have probably Austria and Croatia has a fair amount of my god siblings, as does Spain, but outside of that, it's like very, very sparse.
Yeah, as I mentioned before I hit the record button, I did meet some members or
Hmm.
devotees from the Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mission in France about a
Hmm.
year ago. I was
Yes.
at an independent temple in Rouen, the Radha Kripa Mission. There was a gathering there for
Yeah.
another festival. I can't remember
Mhm.
now. And there was devotees from the Sri Krishna Tanya mission, and it was wonderful to meet them. They had traveled from, and I'm sorry if they're watching now, and I've forgotten the name of the country they're from. They were either from Croatia or the Czech Republic. It's one of the seas that I keep getting mixed up. But they were
Yeah.
wonderful devotees, and they were such a.
Yeah.
I had a several-hour chat with one of them. Such a wonderful young man, definitely.
Uh-huh. Hmm. Sorry, what year was that? I
This
apologize.
was only 12 months ago, just 12
Okay.
months ago. Yeah.
Interesting.
And they were
Yeah.
traveling around France. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing all of that. To my knowledge, you're the first disciple or follower of Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj to come on this podcast.
Guy.
And this podcast is just over 4 years old now.
Right.
Um, and so I feel quite honored actually that you're here.
I'm
And
honored to be here.
yeah,
I love the
and that by Krishna's arrangement, he told someone in Pakistan to message me about someone in New York.
opportunity.
That's the
A
that's the
lot of
combination.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk a bit about today,
Mm.
or not literally today, but
Yeah.
what your savers are now, what you're involved with now. It's 2025. What kind of
Uh-huh.
projects and savers are you involved with at the moment?
Okay. So I just wanted to say that I kind of unfortunately I wasn't as active as I feel I should have been looking back as a younger man, younger devotee. I think part of that was because when I was going on these tours, I was always the youngest person on these tours. They were, like it was a small group of devotees, and I was always the youngest. And like for instance, I never felt like I was in a position to lead kirtan or to even lead Nishringa prayers or like to do much of that. And plus, many times I'd go to different countries where I didn't speak the English, where I didn't speak the language. So, and in addition to other things which I may get into, I didn't pursue that element of being a devotee. It's only been fairly recently that I kind of went through this epiphany that I was given this great opportunity and I really need to utilize this. I need to just develop myself because this is what our Guru Maharaj wanted. I mean, why else would he have traveled at such an advanced age to go from city to city? He wants all of us to do that. So I got very inspired, I'd say about a year ago, and what it all started when I just, I had been through a lot of trauma over the years. Like my mother passed away 3 years ago, and a lot of, my life had been pretty tumultuous. And I finally decided it was time for me to kind of explore my own city because I had been in hermit mode for so long. So I went to this yoga meeting, and I later they do kirtan, and they're not devotees. I found the whole concept mind blowing, and there was a man, a non-devotee. I mean, he wasn't initiated. His name was Millard, and he did some kirtan in Long Island. He had a community where he was a
Wow.
yoga teacher, and somehow he got influenced by ISKCON, and but he never fully joined. But he was very much into kirtan, and he still does, from time to time. It's just he he invited the Mayapuris, I believe, and Gauravani, and a lot of big name kirtan leaders to do kirtan in these yoga studios in Long Island. And virtually nobody there was an initiated devotee. I think to this day, it's just myself and there's one disciple of Kirtanananda Maharaj that we are the only devotees in this entire community. I'd say there are at least 30 or 40 people who come to these kirtan meetings at least semi-regularly. Many come like once a week. And but they're not devotees. Some of them chant a little bit. I know at least one of them chants at least a few rounds a day. Um, but what's interesting is that they love kirtan. Some of them are kirtan leaders without being initiated. They learn how to play the harmonium. It's mainly with the tradition of Krishna Das, the American personality. He's not part of our line. He's a disciple of Neem Karoli Baba, and so they kind of take most of their inspiration from him. So occasionally, mostly we'll chant Hare Krishna, but sometimes it's Om Namo Shivaya or Gam Ganapatahe Namaha. And but I found myself in a situation where when I meet these people, they're very eager to learn more. And occasionally, like I know last Kartik, I introduced singing the Sri Damodarashtakam to this group. And I made sure everyone had a copy of it and the translation. And I they had never sang that before. And my friend Mahashakti, who's a disciple of Kirtanananda Swami, she came with the ghee lamp and pictures of Krishna and Yashoda. Like it was a group effort. We made sure everyone got that benefit of singing Damodar Ashtakam. And then later on, the yoga studio that I go to, it's called So Yoga. The owner made the initiative of having classes, Bhagavad-gītā as it is, where we do every Sunday morning. So we have a different format. It's not a standard class format. So I will read the Sanskrit translation and purports, and they can stop at any time. They can interrupt me, and we can usually we'll stop like after each verse. But if they want to stop me like in the middle of a purport, that's perfectly fine. And then we'll just have a discussion, and I'll do my best to answer the questions, or Mahashakti will do her best to answer the questions, and that was it's I'll tell you, I have never done anything like that in my life. Prior to that, I had never reached out, never really tried to be a mentor to anyone, but it's the most fulfilling feeling to give that knowledge to someone who is not a devotee. And what comes to my mind is there's a story, Bhaktisiddhānta. There was a devotee of Bhaktisiddhānta, disciple, who was a brahmachari. He left the mott because some brahmacharis saw him like talking to a woman, and then they kind of drove him out of the mott. Bhaktisiddhānta comes and says, "Well, what happened to so and so?" And they said, "Well, he was talking to a woman, and we told him to go." And he said, that brahmachari is more important to me than this new temple, because I think the reason he came was because they were inaugurating a new temple. He said, we spend hundreds of gallons of blood to bring one devotee to Krishna. You have to go and find this devotee. And I think it was Sri Bhakti Dayata Madhav Maharaj, who knew like he was into watchmaking before he became brahmachari. So they started going to all the watchmakers. They found him, they brought him back. It was like the prodigal son has returned. So the point I'm trying to make with that story is that even if we really need to be very even if we can bring one person, because we don't have like my group is not very big. We have like 5 or 6 people at most. Usually it's just 4 people, but we have people who are not devotees, and it's just when we can just reach people, even one at a time, and give them that knowledge. And this is not just like a casual thing. This is inspiring people to read independently, to read the Mahabharata, to chant the Mahā-mantra on Japamala. And it's I'm really proud to be a part of that. Even if we don't have a lot of people, it's something I'm very proud of doing. And I think, I think a lot of devotees poo-poo being proud of things because we're supposed to be humble, but we should take pride in what we can do. This is my feeling. That's the only way we can get better at it. We have to know what we can do and develop it into something better and reach more people. But at the same time, stay grounded. We're not,
Mhm.
I'm definitely the furthest thing in the world from a guru. I consider myself one of the most unqualified disciples of my Guru Maharaj. But, you know, this is something that I really relish, and I've been leading kirtan. I never led kirtan before because, again, in my formative devotee years, I was always the youngest person, so I never did any of that. So I just started to learn the harmonium. I just started learning the mridanga, and I'm 46 years old. It's kind of like a midlife crisis, but a good one in the good sense.
Well, I mean, midlife is a relative term because we don't know how long we're going to live and that kind of thing. But I
True.
guess I don't like this term midlife crisis. But I guess my midlife crisis was when I was 35.
Right.
So I'll be 41 this year. But the reason why it
Uh-huh.
was 35 is because for some reason, or
Mm.
by Krishna's arrangement, all of my grandparents died at the age of 70,
Wow. Mm.
which is very young actually,
Yeah.
considering
Hmm.
social advancements these days.
Sure.
But they all had health issues that were partly brought on by their own lifestyles, like smoking and drinking and stuff, you know.
Hmm.
I'm from real kind of working class stock in the south of England, and
Yeah.
so when I turned 35, I was like, wow, halfway through my life now, I want to start doing stuff. After feeling depressed for about a day or two, right? I'm going to start doing more. Similar to
Right.
you, I just thought, right, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit around being depressed at home or go out and try and make a difference
Mm.
and serve people? So I think what you're doing is fantastic.
Thank you.
And it doesn't matter if three or four people come, they're
No.
hearing Krishna's words, they're hearing Bhagavad-gītā, they're chanting Hare Krishna, you know,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and I think that's remarkable. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yes, and I'm always thinking of ways to build on it or to do other things. I'd say like part of this journey that I took to be with to reach out to this yoga community. At the same time, I was also starting to pursue a career in voiceover work. I have some audiobooks to my credit, and I'm hoping someday I can kind of put that to Krishna's service. That's one of my
Mm.
aspirations.
Well, you speak very well,
Thank you.
and you've got a very clear voice,
Hmm.
like a radio show
Yeah.
host or something.
Yes.
It's
I
great.
well, I appreciate that, Prabhu. I'm just praying that whatever I have in this world, I want to give it all to Krishna
Mm.
and to my Guru Maharaj. I feel like I'm at the point in my life where I've seen a lot of different things. I mean, I don't want to get into too much, but my family was doing very well at some point. We had very lucrative businesses, and those businesses fell through. I guess, I'm not 100% familiar with what Srila Prabhupada went through in his Grihasta days, but I think he also went through a lot of businesses that didn't pan out the way that they were supposed to, I suppose. And I mean, because my parents had been through a very tumultuous situation, um, I think I was a very sensitive person in my family, and I kind of let that frankly get the better of me. So right now I'm at the stage where I'm examining myself. I'm getting very introspective. I'm seeing what makes me tick, and just try to make myself the best possible version of myself. But in the process, I want to do service, and I'm very ashamed to admit this to devotees, but I never really had this desire until, like, let's say a year and a half ago, frankly.
That's great. I wouldn't feel or be ashamed about it. For some devotees, for some people, for some reason, it takes a while to really
Yeah.
feel that inspiration or that desire to go out and preach.
Mhm.
Something's happened in your life that's made you think, wow, I need to
Yeah.
start doing stuff. All these material comforts, they give
Yes.
us a false sense of comfort, a false
Yes.
sense of security. And we
Yeah.
feel that we're fine. We can give a donation at the temple and chant a couple of rounds a day. But
Right.
ultimately, when those material things don't last forever,
Exactly.
and then you come to appreciate those things that do last forever,
Exactly. Mm.
such as the Supreme Lord and having a
Yeah.
relationship with the Supreme Lord.
Exactly.
Um, and for whatever reason, that happened for you 18 months ago.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It was a series of
yeah,
events. Yeah.
and you're 46 now,
Yes.
which is still relatively very young.
Thank
Um,
you.
and
That's
then,
very encouraging.
and there's no reason for the next 40 odd years, you
Mhm.
can't be sharing the teachings of Lord Krishna at the yoga group.
That's true. Or somewhere else.
Yeah.
I hope to honestly, I mean, I don't want to sound like pretentious or something like that. I really just imagine myself reaching out worldwide someday. I hope that's my aspiration, just for the sheer potential of, because I feel like as someone from a multicultural background, someone from New York, I feel that I have the ability to connect with others from
Mm,
different parts of the world.
mm.
So I'm
Well, I have
hoping.
to say, I found the fact that you have Iranian um, ancestry, I find that personally quite interesting, and the
Thank you.
links with Sufism,
Yeah.
and Srila Prabhupada always, talked about how much he would glorify his own disciples if they were to preach in the Middle East. Preaching in
Mhm.
a Muslim country. I'm not saying that you should go to a
Right.
Middle East, but
Uh,
preaching to Muslims or to people of Iranian heritage might be something you might think, wow, I don't know many devotees who are doing that.
I have to admit that that thought has crossed my mind, and it's something that I've fantasized about in the past. But at the same time, I will do it under safer circumstances. Like I'm just praying for the day that things become more, I guess, just that it's more conducive, that it's like there's more fertile ground for us to go and to do Sankirtan in Iran, for instance. I would love to see that day.
Hmm. Are
And
you are you a dual national, Prabhu?
I am, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Two passports.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. I was just,
Oh
I
no,
mean,
that's fine.
this conversation could go off on a massive tangent because, in the UK news only 8 weeks ago, there was two British people who were biking on a
Yeah.
motorbike going through Iran. And
Yeah.
the day before they entered Iran, they put on Facebook, "Oh, we're going to go through Iran, even though our parents have warned us against it."
Right.
They've been arrested by the Iranian authorities and are now in prison. And I'm like, why did you even put it on Facebook to say you knew of the danger? I mean,
Yes.
that's just silly.
I have to agree with that. I mean, I went to Iran 20 years ago. My grandfather had passed away. And I was a little scared, but at the same time, I had always wanted to visit. I wanted to know how it felt. And it's hard for me to say, like, some parts of it were very interesting, but other things were frankly very stifling to me. And, and I'm going to be candid here. It's just like the same way that India is kind of overly urbanized. I think Iran has a similar situation, and I personally find that unpleasant. I'm brought up in the suburbs of New York, so I'm used to seeing trees and everything. I like to see nature. So, I mean, the other thing is, when I was about to leave the country, this very like clean, I wouldn't say clean shaven, but he looked there. This person had a look about him. He was working for the government, and because I have my other passport has my other name, which that's a can of worms in of itself, because then I have to carry this like certified copy of my name change documents wherever I go, anytime I'm using both passports. And then he called me by my legal US name, and he actually pronounced it right on the first try, which, like, that's 1 out of 100 people. And he's like, "Are you him?" And then it scared me. I got spooked. But he just kind of like, when I said I was who I was, he just kind of looked very amused and he allowed me to get on the plane. And I had heard stories about people getting arrested or getting forced into military conscription, and I thought I figured that was the next thing that was gonna happen. But they let me go on board. And yeah,
Wow.
that was I don't think honestly I'm never gonna go again unless there's some serious changes
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's just
Right.
it's too nerve-wracking for me. You know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm conscious of the time, and we've
Yeah,
got maybe two more questions just to kind of
sure.
briefly go over. And one of
Yeah.
them is about your uh you have an interest in not just spiritual pursuits, but kind of
Mhm.
physical martial art pursuits as well. Um,
Yeah,
can you tell us a bit about that? Because I understand that you're a second degree black belt in Kendo. No,
correct.
in and you've been involved with other things as well. Can you tell us a bit about that and why you've been doing those types of activities?
Okay, so when I was young, I went to Hawaii. There was a sizable Japanese community there, and like even there's one cemetery called Valley of the Temples where they have this like Byodo-in, like Buddhist temple, and like you see these kind of structures. And as a young kid, when I saw all these things, it was very like mystifying to me. I always had this affinity for Japan in addition to India. Like Japan and India were like my two favorite places as a young child. And and as a 13-year-old, I would watch like these old samurai movies by Kurosawa, and I learned 2 years of Japanese language in addition to 2 years of Persian language. So I wouldn't say I'm fluent in either one, but I have a pretty good foundation. So, when I was about 28, I figured I need to get some exercise. I'm not the type to go to the gym. I just don't find that very interesting personally. I'm not, anyway. But I decided, let me take a martial art. And that was the most interesting martial art to me because there was something very traditional about it. It reminded me of the samurai. It was something like very cultural, very significant. I mean, you're treating everyone very fairly. You're bowing to each other. I mean, it's almost like being a devotee in a very vague sort of way because we do bow to each other in the not the same way. It's not like giving obeisances, but it's there's a sense of honor there that really attracted me, and I felt that I really needed to develop like kind of a samurai spirit, that I needed to become a more brave person because I feel like due to various things that happened in my life, I feel I was not as assertive or courageous as I should be, frankly. So I really took these classes mainly to develop myself, and I developed kind of a real affinity for it. But I think ultimately I never get to the point where I was in like good at competitions or anything like that. People did say that my kendo techniques were very clean and like I had good basic skills and everything, which was a nice compliment because you want basic skills. If you don't have it, then you really can't make much advancement. So basically, I did that for a few years, but it was a long commute from Long Island to New York City. And and then my mother got sick, and after that, I was kind of tethered close to my home. Now, I would say like last year when I'm trying to develop myself, I was all over the place. I didn't have this like epiphany, like, oh, I got to be the best devotee ever. It was more like, I need to develop myself. I need to find what I find passion for and go there. And I was all over the place. I went to karaoke, I went to dance classes, I went back to my old kendo dojo, but it was just like in the end, it was the devotional life which ultimately won me over. But fast forwarding, I went to back to my dojo. They were having this rank seminar, where you would learn how to take your next level. Like I wanted to take the third Dan exam, and I had failed the third Dan exam in 2015, which when the last time I was practicing. And I was practicing with these very high level ranks, like I would say like six Dan, 6 degree black belts. I was practicing with them, sparring with them. And after the class, my sensei, the same sensei I had before, he's wonderful. He very old school, and he's an actor. He was in Letters from Iwo Jima. He played Major General Hayashi in that movie. He was also he played the president of Toyota in the David Letterman show.
Wow.
Yeah, his name is Noboru Kataoka. But anyway, like he said, you did really well, and you could even take the fourth Dan exam if you want. And that would have been, and you really can't skip. You can't. But it was nice to know that if I could definitely do this. And I was struggling with this for a while because I think kendo, it's partially physical development, but it's also spiritual development. I've heard people say that kendo's a conversation, It's how you represent yourself. It's how you hold yourself. And I think that's ultimately what I was seeking, from kendo. I wanted to hold myself up in a more regal sort of way, not to be pretentious, but just to have that dignity. So it was nice to know that, I feel that whatever I had been through in life from the time I failed the test in 2015 to the time when I went back to do the seminar, like I had no kendo practice in between there. And yet, for some reason, I had the ability to pass that test. And I feel like it was just personal development. It was just going through certain trials and tribulations. Like we see this in the Mahabharata with the Pandavas, the 13-year exile, Whatever they went through, I mean, it made them into better instruments for Krishna. It made them into very polished devotees that were ready for the Battle of Kurukshetra.
Wow. I loved how some of the terms and the names that you used just kind of rolled off of your tongue just then. Uh,
Oh,
but yeah, and it is, I think a number of people would say that like a physical discipline, like martial arts, is like a spiritual activity.
right.
It's like a sport, you're very focused on that kind of
Yeah.
fine-tuning yourself physically. There's a spiritual element to it as well in terms of
Yeah.
being disciplined, literally. Um, so yeah, I was just thinking about that as well. It's kind of it helps you spiritually.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that every devotee should be going to martial arts, but I think myself in particular needed this development. But at some point, I had gotten all I could out of it, and then there were other things in life I had to do to kind of develop myself further.
Thank you for sharing that, Prabhu.
Of
I
course.
think possibly as well, not
Mm.
that I remember all 167 previous guests, you might be the only martial arts expert that I've ever interviewed. I can't recall that anyone else has ever mentioned it, but I don't remember every single
No,
conversation, so I appreciate you saying that.
no
Um,
problem.
Okay, one final question. I'm conscious of
Yep,
the time. I have OCD with timekeeping, by the way,
no
and now I know
problem.
what time you need to leave your home. I'm like,
Yeah,
it's
don't worry about that. That's flexible.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. It's my one of my forms of attachment to this material world. It's like time. I don't know where it's from. Going forward, we've talked about the past, talked about the present. Going forward, I
Yes.
ask this of every guest:
Mm.
how can we,
Mm.
in your experience or based on your own views, how can we attract more Western people to the philosophy of Krishna consciousness?
I mean, I think ultimately, the easy answer is we should do literally everything we can. But I think the first thing that comes to my mind is we all need to develop ourselves in the best way we can. And when we do that, then other people will ultimately, will follow our example. Like we should be like, for instance, I think a lot of people over the years have been kind of pigeonholed. They've been kind of encouraged to, let's say, become brahmachari, for instance. And I think if it's really not in your heart, then you shouldn't be going in that direction. If it's not in, we should be trying to figure out, for instance, how do I best live in this world? What's something that I enjoy doing, and then work on that, and then become just very well situated. And then from there, we should be looking into like what best ways we can use our free time to attract others. And, like I've seen a lot of different generations. Like I've known a lot of Prabhupada disciples, for instance. I don't know them intimately, but I've talked to them a lot. And like for instance, I know like there's been this movement to like let's say use yoga classes to draw people in, and it's been kind of controversial. People say that let's just stick to Srila Prabhupada's formula. And I think Srila Prabhupada's formula is great. We should never leave that. We should keep, we should, whatever, have Sankirtan, moving Sankirtan, or the Sankirtan where everyone just stays put, and Sunday feast. Let's keep all of that. But let's do the yoga class. Why not? And I'm speaking from personal experience here. You know, there are people who, without these yoga classes, they would never know Krishna, especially not in the suburbs. And I can tell you this is changing lives. I mean, having that what do you call it? Having that opportunity that wouldn't have been there otherwise. Everyone's different. Somebody might they might like go to a Sunday feast, or they might take prasadam and like the prasadam, and then they'll draw closer to Krishna. Or you may have somebody who goes to a yoga class, and then they're introduced to the philosophy, and then they go to kirtan and they go in that way. Or eh, everyone has, I think there's always a different story. I mean, many of them are similar, but we need to just do as much as we possibly can. I mean, when I right now I do work for the U.S. Postal Service, and it's like when people ask me about my mala, for instance, I'll tell them what it means, and it starts some very nice conversations. And it's we have to just be ready for every single opportunity that we get, because I feel ultimately everyone has something that can be that will pull them to Krishna. Everyone has some aspect. Some people may like be into the literature. Other people may like be drawn to yoga, and then drawn to other aspects. Um we have to be innovative. We have to always think of something new.
Yeah. And Prabhu, I love your answer. I'm sitting here grinning because it's kind of like you and I are on the same wavelength with this particular issue. I often say to
Yeah.
people when they ask me that question, um, uh, do anything you can, try everything as long as it's legal.
Yes, exactly.
So
Legal.
so
That's my point.
whatever
Exactly.
whatever whatever, it doesn't matter. And within the movement, you have these different debates and arguments about what works, and they all work,
Yes,
and they
that's
all
right. They
don't
all
work,
work.
and they
Yes.
also all don't work because if everyone's different. And
Hmm.
I remember when I first joined the movement over 20 years ago,
Hmm.
I I'm going to feel quite negative. I'm going to say negative now. I wasn't
Mhm.
attracted to this idea of living in a temple and washing the toilets and washing the floor and cooking. And those are important activities and services. I get
Mhm.
that. And I
Yeah.
don't mind cleaning toilets at all. But there must be so much more to life. This is not a prison camp.
Mhm.
And, you know, uh, Prabhupada talked about he said that Krishna consciousness wasn't about necessarily giving things up. It was
Mhm.
about adding Krishna to your life.
Mhm.
And of course, there are things we shouldn't be doing. We should try and stay away from them and not do them. But ultimately, Krishna consciousness is about adding Krishna to your life and
Yes.
dovetailing your skills, your talents, your
Yes.
enthusiasms, your talents to serve
Yes.
Krishna and
Yes.
to be less self-conscious and more Krishna conscious. You
Hmm.
know, so you're good at certain things, so be good for Krishna.
Yes.
You know, and I'm good at certain things, so I'll be good for Krishna. I'll
Yes.
use my interests
Hmm.
to grow the Krishna consciousness movement in my section of the world, and I'll try
Yes.
my hardest. And
Yeah,
that's all I can do.
exactly. And it's, when we find those things that we're most passionate about, that's when we ultimately shine as people. And it's not just using those skills and being good at it and making results. It's the fact that you are just so like enthusiastic and passionate. Ultimately, you shine from that. And people pick up on that. And even if they're not necessarily interested in exactly what you have to say, they'll be interested in your shine and they'll be drawn to you naturally.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with devotees before, and the Christians call it witnessing.
Yeah.
So witnessing through your behavior.
Hmm.
Um, um, so of course your actions are important, the things you say, but just by the way you behave around people
Yeah.
is really important. And so yeah, you and I are on the same wavelength there
Mm.
with that, and just trying anything. And I think what you're doing is wonderful in the yoga
Thank,
center.
thank you.
You found a group of people who are kind of the term I want to use is they are halfway there.
Yes.
Like when Prabhupada found the hippies in the 60s, they're halfway there.
Hmm.
They're disillusioned with the material world,
Right.
like I am. So
Yeah.
the job's half done.
Yes, it is. And I feel so lucky that I've met these souls because, like you said, they're halfway done. I mean, one of the people in our group, he was a disciple or follower of Ram Dass. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have like quite an eclectic group. And, one person is becoming vegetarian more gradually, and they're not 100% there, but she's making good progress and she's chanting and loves the Mahabharat. There's so many. It's just when you see that progress, it's very encouraging.
I was just sorry I was kind of grinning so much is that
That's okay. No, it's good. It's a good thing.
I was at this kind of alternative hippie type green event 2 years ago, and this kind of psychic astrology lady.
Uh,
I didn't really want to talk to her, if I'm honest. I
mm,
wasn't really that interested.
mm,
It wasn't a Hare Krishna event, and she just
yeah.
wanted to absolutely tell me that in a previous life I was a disciple of Ram Dass,
Mm,
and that I had this kind of mischievous type approach. And
mm,
I kind of laughed because she didn't know me, and I am a bit of a troublemaker in the Hare Krishna movement. These people will know, but I
no,
quite like it actually.
yeah.
And I just so whenever someone says Ram Dass, I
Mm,
think of the psychic woman I met at the psychic fair who told
mm,
me who I was in a previous life. But
mm.
yeah, that kind of freestyle approach, isn't it? Kind of the whole Ram Dass thing. But and it's great. And do you? So I think after this recording, you're going off to a temple
Eventually, yeah. It doesn't have to be like I don't have a
event
specific time frame.
eventually. And that's is that a local? Can I ask? Is that a local ISKCON temple?
It is the Bhakti Center in New
Ah,
York City. I do service there from time to time. I just didn't want to like really mention it because like the past few weeks I've been staying home because it's a long commute and I just I've been getting lazy late. Well, I shouldn't say that, but I mean, I'm doing things at home. I'm practicing harmonium. I'm doing things with Tulsi Maharani, and I was part of the volunteer team. Like they have this thing on WhatsApp where you say what do you want to do that week. Once I've done. I was the MC one week. I announced the guests and everything. That was a nice assignment. I enjoyed that, and I've led kirtan a couple of times, and I've also, many times I've mopped the floors, and it's a very grounding
Mm.
activity. And I really like the Bhakti Center because it's very you meet all kinds of devotees there and new people, and it's been very welcoming to me because frankly, just as someone who I don't really have ties to ISKCON. So, and I feel like 20 years ago things were a bit more there was frankly some friction between ISKCON and like Gaudiya Math groups. I don't feel that way anymore. I mean, it's a better vibe, and I feel very welcome there, and it's been a nice
You know,
experience.
funnily enough, I was having this very same conversation yesterday
Mm.
um, at an event about how things are just better than they were 20 years ago. Mainly the
Yeah,
relationship between the institution of ISKCON and any other group.
yeah.
Um, because I hope ISKCON has kind of come to realize that they don't have to worry so much about
Mm.
losing people. And if they do lose people, people have the freedom to go where they want to go.
Exactly.
Most of us live in democracies where you're within reason, you can make your own decisions about how you live your own life. Um,
Yes, exactly.
I mean, here in the UK, as I'm sure most of the West, ISKCON is the biggest mat, and it has big temples, and they're wonderful, and they're beautiful, and they're attracting lots of people and lots of money. So there's no need to worry.
Yes.
I often joke about how, well, it's partly serious, but also a joke. There's 68 million people in the UK. I
Mm.
worked out a couple of years ago, so there's actually a lot of mats in the UK, a lot of missions. There's
Oh
around
yeah. Mm.
20 Hare Krishna temples,
Mm.
of which 12 of them are ISKCON and 8 are not ISKCON.
Right.
But if you add all of them together and the number of people I think go to those temples,
Mm.
that only adds up to 0.002% of the UK's population.
Mm.
So there's well over 67 million people that are still not engaging in Krishna consciousness in Great Britain. So why are we arguing amongst ourselves? Why don't we
Exactly.
focus on them and
Yes.
saving them or whatever term you want to use?
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. I mean, I like to go to the ISKCON temple. I like to get involved. I get involved in the Sankirtan. I've been part of the New York City Sankirtan group a few times, and you're ultimately. I mean, I see myself as a honored guest, and I just do my best to bring people to Srila Prabhupada and to the ISKCON temples. And it's etiquette, but it's also for the best. We want
Mhm.
to bring as many people as possible. ISKCON is the biggest, and that should be the gateway for everyone to see the Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, and I mean, it's great that you've said that and you're talking in that way and you're expressing that. But I also hope that after today's recording and today's podcast, people will feel inspired to go and read some books or read about the teachings of Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Puri Maharaj. You
Mhm.
know, you've
Definitely.
spent so much wonderful time today glorifying him.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
probably one of the kind of in the Western world, one of the lesser known spiritual teachers
Yes.
in the Gaudiya tradition,
Hmm.
for different reasons.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm like at my yoga center, for instance, not my yoga center, but it's I I try to spend time to glorify my Guru Maharaj and to know, I want everyone to know whatever it is that I'm giving, it's coming from him. I think I just actually made this short speech like at a kirtan last night at the yoga center. I said, every good thing that I'm giving you tonight is coming from my Guru Maharaj.
Mm.
Whatever mistakes I make, I take full responsibility for it. So, I mean, I just when I'm at ISKCON, I just feel frankly like just for etiquette's sake, I if people ask me who my guru is, I will tell them, but I don't I don't really like parade that information because it's just for me
It's
it's a matter
just,
of
I mean, everyone understands that. I don't think you should
yeah.
feel awkward about that. It's kind of like if you support a football team and you go
Yeah.
to the other football team's club,
Mhm.
you say things in a different way. Well, who do you support? You say the other team, but you don't go on about it.
Right, exactly.
Well, I'm not going to go on about it because I'm in a different environment here. I mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
common sense, isn't it?
Mhm.
I think. I've also just realized that you know, biologically or generationally, we're similar, almost close in age,
True, yes.
because of the time that you took initiation and because of who you took initiation from,
Mhm.
your link to Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur is one generation shorter than mine.
Param
Uh,
Gurudev, yes,
yeah,
that's
and
true.
I love that. It just shows about the longevity of Bhaktisiddhānta Prabhupada's mission, isn't it? You know,
Definitely.
um,
Yeah.
great.
Yes. He yeah, it's just kind of similar. Like I have an uncle that's younger than me. So, it's that's
Wow.
the kind of the first thing that pops in my head. We're fortunate that the Bhaktisiddhanta's line, like people the acharyas such as my Guru Maharaj, they were able to reach, at such an advanced age. My Guru Maharaj was 23 when he took initiation from Bhaktisiddhanta. I was 23 when I took shelter from my Guru Maharaj. So, it's kind of some synchronicity, but
Hmm.
just the fact that we've been able, I'm hoping that in the future there will be others of advanced age to impart to the youngest, to really make that connection with the youngest generation. In that way, I think, maybe I'm just too consumed with numbers here, but I feel like it will ultimately um, it brings us all closer to the six Goswamis. That through the parampara, that the line is shorter. In other words.
Hmm.
And I think
Yes.
that's ultimately going to benefit everyone who's involved there.
Hmm. Wow. Thank you, Prabhu. I am conscious of the time, even though you said the time, but we can still, you and I can have a brief debrief after, but
Sure.
um, it's been a fantastic conversation today on this
Thank you.
podcast.
The same. I really appreciate you. You asked fantastic questions. You're very personable and felt very welcome here. And I really appreciate your association. Happy to know you.
Oh, thank you for your kind words. We've always tried to create an environment here where everyone is welcome.
Yeah.
And that because that's important, I think, in Lord Chaitanya's family. So many of us have been excluded or felt
Yes.
excluded. Well, how can we include people? And
Mhm.
actually, within reason, almost anyone's allowed to come on this podcast as long as they're not completely mad. I mean, the groups of people that are not allowed on here are very small. So there's just two groups of people not allowed on this podcast. One are child abusers, if I know they're a child abuser, and the
Yeah.
second one are Nazis or the far
Right.
right,
Yeah.
because believe it or not, there is a very small Nazi element in the Hare Krishna movement
I wasn't
um,
aware of that. That's a lot
that,
to
that are
speak
very
about.
loud on the internet, but they're not allowed on this podcast. I mean, for some bizarre reason,
Mhm.
they say that Srila Prabhupada favored an Aryan race of people.
Mhm.
And I just find it comical because the first basic teaching of Krishna consciousness is we're not the body. We're not
Right.
white or black or Jewish or Christian or Hindu or gay
Yeah.
or straight or conservative or liberal. Not any of these. And you're missing the
Right.
first point. So that's not even
Right.
this. What's the point of even having a conversation with you?
I mean, I think personally, it's evident in the teachings that Mahaprabhu said every town and village. He didn't say except for the non-Aryans. It's it's inclusive. I mean, he had Haridas Thakur, who was born Muslim. He was welcomed. He was exalted, not just welcomed, but exalted. So that nobody can deny, they can't do it reasonably. They can't reasonably deny that this is an all-inclusive movement. And like you said, no, what are we? so concerned about like bodily designation for? I mean, Bhagavad-gītā 5:18 alone says it's an exalted sage that sees no difference in the souls.
And that's a wonderful note to end on, I think.
Right.
That was planned very well, actually.
Nice. I'm glad it worked out.
Um, so Krsnacandra Prabhu, I'm just gonna say goodbye to the viewers at home.
Jai.
And then you just stay on the line. It's like a chat show, isn't it? Stay on the line. You've called in today. Talk about
Yes.
your grievances. Stay on the line. Good morning. We have Good Morning Britain here. You probably got, I think you've got Good Morning America. Not that I've
No.
ever watched it. But Krishna Chandra Prabhu, it's been fantastic to talk with you this week and hear your story, which is a phenomenal story.
Thank you. I just appreciate you being there to talk with me and to host my story. It's been just a wonderful experience. I'm really grateful to you for having me on your show.
No problem at all. And yeah, hopefully you'll come back one day in the future.
I
And
would love to. I hope I
and
have many more stories by then.
yeah, and hopefully I can at some point by Krishna's arrangement, the lady that recommended you in Pakistan, she might come
Yeah.
on as well in the future.
Hmm.
Um, by Krishna's arrangement. Okay, so a big thank you to Krishna Chanya Prabhu for being our 168th guest
Jai.
uh, on this week's podcast. It's been great to hear from him and hear his story. Do not forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. After every time I say that, the number of subscribers does increase. So it shows that you are listening to me, which is fantastic. So hit the subscribe button. Also, the same on Facebook. If you're watching that way, please do like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page. And also, do not forget as well, there's so many things to remember. Do not forget that I always love to receive constructive feedback. Believe it or not, you are allowed to have your own opinion. I welcome that and I encourage that. So you can say what anything you want in a constructive way, in a constructive way, because I always like to hear people's feedback about every podcast. And if you want to find out more about Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu's Guru Maharaj and the Sri Krishna Chaitanya mission, please get in touch with me and I can pass you on to him. And that whole story about 9/11 in the World Trade Center and your Guru Maharaj was just wonderful.
Jai.
Um,
I'm
yeah,
going to
I mean,
send you the video as soon as possible.
send me the video, and with this recording, I can add the link.
Jai.
Uh, so if people are listening to me say this now, it means I did put the link with, with the recording. So, okay, so until next week, I will see you all soon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.